Welcome to Geocache Adventures with me, Shadow Dragon 1, where I explore the world of geocaching. If you like the podcast, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or the Geocache Adventures Facebook page. Or share it with somebody that you think would enjoy it. Word of mouth is a great way to spread the podcast. You can also join Geocache Adventures on Buy Me a Coffee. Just follow Geo Adventures, that's one word, GEO Adventures on Buy Me a Coffee, and get behind the scenes on every episode or become a member to unlock other exclusive content. Hi everybody, Amy Shadow Dragon 1 here, and with me today is Ryan Semmel, fellow geocacher and a leading authority on Mingo. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, and yourself?
I'm doing good, thanks. So Ryan, I always like to start off talking to people, learning about how they got started geocaching. So what's your story?
Mine is actually a pretty interesting story. Mine went pre-geocaching back in 2007 when Dr. Pepper was doing a treasure hunt, because I'm a big Dr. Pepper drinker. They were doing a treasure hunt, and I was stationed at Fort Leavenworth at the time and took one of my soldiers down to Kansas City searching for a Dr. Pepper hidden treasure. Which fast forward to 2009, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and that individual and his wife were stationed there at the time, and they gave me a little pamphlet about a fancy little game called geocaching. So I went and bought my first Garmin E-Trex GPS and found a couple caches in St. Roberts, Missouri, and a lot of the rest is history.
And here we are today.
Yes, I think I'm about 8,500 geocache finds since. I geocached in Europe when I was stationed over there, so I did a lot of Germany and other countries in the area, and moved back to Kansas, and that's where I kind of bring you up to where I'm at now. So
very cool. So today we're going to talk about Mingo. And you somehow have become like the person to go to talk about the Mingo geocache, but you're not the hider. So tell me how you got to be like the authority on Mingo.
Ultimately, it comes down to Mingo Madness, which was a mega event held there in 2020. And that's kind of how it became, I guess, a microphone for it. But we can go back to the history of the geocache, and I can tell you a little bit about that. GC30.
Absolutely.
So,
so for those who don't know what Mingo is, can you just lay it out for us? What is Mingo?
So Mingo is a very small town in Kansas. But the historical reason for us, it is the oldest active geocache in the world as of this date. And from all my research, it actually became the oldest active in about 2003.
Okay.
It was actually the seventh stash ever placed. And I did say that correct. It was placed as a stash, not as a geocache. So it was placed prior to the term geocache actually started on all the channels. So it was placed, and this is the other fun thing. It was actually placed on May 10th of 2000.
Really? The website says the 11th.
So, like,
how did that?
Like I was saying, it was placed before geocaching.com. So as the game started back in May of 2000, when Dave Ulmer hid the first stash up in Oregon, everything went out pretty much by boards. They didn't have actual cache pages like they do now. And when Kansas Stasher, who is the actual cache hider, placed his first stash in Mingo, Kansas, he actually placed it on May 10th. But between that and when it was published on geocaching.com, as GC30, the date got changed to May 11th.
Oh.
So that's one of the things I've actually spoken with Kansas Stasher on messages and stuff like that. And I've asked him if we wanted to fight to get it changed, but he says he doesn't really care. May 11th is only 1 day difference, and he's still happy with that date.
It's still the old active either way.
Exactly.
So May 10th, that is really early on.
Yes.
So the current container, from pictures I've seen, is like the PVC pipe with the end caps.
Yes.
Is that reminiscent of that very first container, or was it different back then?
So the very first container was actually a metal container hidden underground. It is in a hole, but remember back in 2000, there weren't rules and guidelines yet.
Right.
So it is grandfathered into the rule of not being quote unquote buried. So I'm going to give all the spoilers out in the beginning of this. So for those that have not been there, it is buried in the ground at the fence post. The original container that Kansas Stasher put out there was a metal container that can't be found anymore.
Okay.
It was actually a canister that the military used to hold parachutes.
Really?
And after replacing it a few times by different people, many people have helped Kansas Stasher keep this cache alive. But after looking and looking, we couldn't find that container anymore. So right before Geo Woodstock that was in Denver, 14er, which was in, I think, 2016.
Okay.
We placed the current container that's out there, which is the PVC. It's a 4-inch PVC with a cap on both sides. So it's been around for quite a while. So we're getting ready to have, I don't even know what number Geo Woodstock now, but when it was out in Denver, it was replaced Memorial Day weekend of that year. And we've been keeping it that style container as much as we can throughout.
So being around for almost 23 years, this container's gone missing a couple of times.
As was stated on the plaque, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, like anything's been around for a while, there's a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And Mingo does have quite a few stories that we can go into here. It has been through many trials and tribulations. Anywhere
I can
from
imagine.
the hole that the cache was in was filled with foam.
Foam, like that spray foam
The spray foam that you see all the time.
Oh no!
It was filled with that one time, and it was cleaned out. And then, if you have found the geocache since 2013, you'll notice that the cache container is inside a nice concrete hole. That concrete hole was not there because at one time the cache container was taken and the hole was filled in with concrete.
Oh.
And then once that happened, there was a group of people who went up and rented a drill and assisted Kansas Stasher in making a nice hole for the container to fit in. So
they just drilled into the concrete that got poured in the hole.
Yes. So and, they made a 6-inch hole all the way down through the concrete, and it worked out better than just a dirt hole around the container. So they left the concrete.
Yeah, I would actually think that'd be a little better protection for it from getting washed out and stuff with the rain.
So it definitely is.
Is there like a lid on the hole or something, or like a rock over it, or is it just there?
There's a rock that when the group that went up there drilled the hole, they brought the rock from their home.
Oh,
So
okay.
that rock has actually been brought in to be placed over top of the container.
That's interesting.
So it is protected by that, and over time, different people. One of the strange pieces, I guess you can call it, of swag that has made its home at Ground Zero is a yellow brick with
A
Mingo.
yellow brick?
Yep, somebody painted a brick in black Sharpie, wrote Mingo, um, and it's been there. It's actually been there through quite a few containers.
Really?
Yes.
So it's just sitting there hanging out by the rock.
Yep. Sitting right there at the bottom of the fence post usually when I go out there. So I've been going out there probably about, I would say, anywhere from 3 to 6 times a year, just to go out and do a little bit of maintenance for Kansas Stasher, and sometimes replace a container or talk to some of the locals. Because after hosting a mega event in the area, I have become friends with quite a few people in the area. So we'll
I
go
can
out. And,
imagine. It's a small town.
yes, it's the whole county has about 2,500 people in it. So and when we went in, well, ended up being 2021 for Mingo Madness, we had a lot of people assist us in making it the event that it was.
How did the small town of Mingo handle being flooded with all these geocachers for that?
So, in I'm actually gonna go back to 2015.
Okay.
So Mingo Madness was done out at Mingo in 2015,
Okay.
and it was placed, or it was a tent was put up, a small tent was put up right there in the parking lot area around the cache, and we had probably about 200 people come out just from being a regular published event. Um, Cantu Land, Day of the Dead, and a couple others did the event. I know when Mingo Madness 2020 first got published, we had pictures from that one. They had a balloon launch, which we did get quite a few people complain to us when we were doing the 2020 event, saying, "Why are you launching balloons?" Um, but so we did not do that again in 2020. Uh, but the town of Mingo, which if you've been there and you've driven into the town, you'll notice it has a grain silo, about 10 houses, and a church. But the church, I still love them all my heart because in 2015 they came out and brought us all cookies and drinks and
Oh,
welcomed us
cool.
in. And we did find out from talking to the pastor at the church that some of the issues we had been with by some of the youth in the area finding this container with goodies in it. So some of the trackables that have gone missing were taken by youth. Most of them, I think, were retrieved and handed back out to people. And that's one of the other big issues we have with the geocache. If you go on there and you'll see that there's, I think last I looked, there was like 75 trackables listed as in the container. But if you've seen the container, it couldn't hold 75 trackables.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people will place their trackable in that cache or somebody else trackable in that cache, and either it's was never placed there that has happened, or people who retrieve it never retrieve it, so it just stays in that cache. So I do know about 25 to 30 of them that were listed in there at one time had been stolen in the past, because
Mm,
it's in the middle of nowhere. So that's
yeah.
one of the problems with the cache is not many people see the area, or not many eyes are on that area at all times. So there are unhonest people in the world, don't understand the little game that we play, and they just see something and take it, not realizing that it's somebody else's property that is set to travel. So,
Yeah. Classic story of the missing trackable.
oh, and I'm very big in trackables and geocoins, and it, breaks my heart to say that is a very common story with trackables.
Unfortunately, yeah. I've had several of mine. I think I've had 3 different ones in the past week. I got a log on it saying not in the cache.
Ah, yes, it
I'm like,
happens.
"Ugh, it
Unfortunately, it happens
happens."
more often than not. That's why I do make a lot of. I, as you can tell in the room I'm in, I have a lot of toys that I can make proxies to send out. So I send out a lot of
I've done that,
proxies,
yeah.
and some of the coins are just really nice, and I want to keep it in my collection to show off and send out the proxy. And there for a while, HQ was sending you a proxy with the geocoins, which I have one right here. Uh, the coin was really nice, and they sent a proxy that was with it. So,
Ah.
but they've changed from that style and actually send out a different trackable with it now.
Yeah. I have several. I've just gotten to where even the little keychain ones I just make a proxy for so I can
Unfortunately,
restart
yep.
them.
So,
But I've got several sitting on a shelf that I still need to make a proxy for and get sent out. So
if you could see what I'm looking at, I personally probably own over, I would say 3,000 trackables. Most of them are not
Oh
activated.
wow.
So,
Wow.
so yes, that's one of my other loves.
Let's go back to that yellow brick for a minute because I keep thinking, how has that yellow brick not been stolen when the geocache keeps getting taken?
Well, and that's, again, it's a mystery. So there's a lot of theories that we've discussed over time. And at one time, we know for a fact the local farmer that's in the area was not happy with geocachers because as a geocacher, you have to remember your actions um, resemble over 2 million people around the world. So if
Yeah.
you go and you want to get close to a geocache, or you want to save the extra 2 minutes and drive through somebody's field, it'll make somebody upset.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually what happened at one time. We don't know for a fact if any of those things were done by anybody in particular. We do know, like when the concrete happened, there was construction going on in the area. So it could have been just some contractor saying, "Oh, well, there's a hole here. Let's fill it in with concrete." Um, sometimes you have to give that to somebody that they didn't maliciously go over, take the cash, and fill the hole in.
Yeah.
We sometimes had to look at rainbows and unicorns, but in the real world, somebody took the container out and filled it in with concrete. Very often, the containers have disappeared. Um, Up until even last year, one has disappeared when the plaque was stolen, and there has been one disappeared since then.
Oh
We
wow.
have been doing some research, and over time, there will be trackables, uh, actual tracking devices in some of the containers because there is a compartment where we can store a tracking device. But it comes down
Oh.
to, even if we find out that it isn't in somebody's on their mantle for some crazy reason, what are we going to really do with it?
Yeah.
Because we don't know if it's a local, we don't know if it's another geocacher. I remember at one time when the cache went missing. If you ever look at the geocaching forums, uh, the only good thing comes out of that, I think, is the trackable race or trackable exchanges they do in the holidays. But the forums, as soon as it went missing, there were a lot of people saying, "Hey, well, if that needs to be archived and move the oldest one to this cache or move the oldest one to that cache." Um, well, as you know, just well as I do, it's a preset cache. You can't choose which one's gonna be the next oldest. Um,
Yeah.
because a lot of people thought Beverly was gonna be the next oldest, but there's actually one before that. So,
Yeah. It's just actually whatever's
yep.
out there
And
happens to be the next one.
if you believe in all the things you read, there's cache. There's people who say they placed the cache when it wasn't. HQ in recent years has done a great job of not allowing you to put a date that weird on a cache. but there have been caches in the past that say that they were placed in 1999,
Oh,
which
yeah,
we all
that's
know is not
not
possible.
possible.
So, but yeah,
Interesting.
Mingo definitely has been a featured thing. I know, like in the notes you had, it had been featured as a geocache of the week.
Yeah.
And actually, you had it as March 17th. It's actually been listed 3 times as geocache of the week. The first time was actually July 4th in 2010. So,
That's funny. It's funny how when researching, some things come up and some don't.
like I've done a lot of research. I think we're going to discuss it later.
Yeah, I think you've spent a little bit more time researching than I did for
um,
the
and
over the
yeah,
years.
I have an addictive personality, and when I get stuck on something, it seems like I go all in at times.
Okay, so let's go to the tribute plaque now.
Okay.
What's this for people who don't know?
All right. So the tribute plaque is placed near the geocache. So when we were starting to talk about having a mega event, we went mega status. So we published the event, and we went mega status in less than 5 days.
Wow.
So with help
Was
of
this
other,
at for the 2021?
yes, for 2020 Mingo Madness. So I've had a thought about it because I like history, and I like driving by all the historical markers. They're everywhere. I'm probably one of the few people that will pull over and read historical markers that are all over the country. I just came back from Texas, and I think Texas has probably more historical marker plaques than people sometimes. Um, so, thinking about it, we were talking with the committee about let's make this spot actually known, because if you didn't know, even before then, if you go to Google Maps and go out by exit 62 and on I-70 in western Kansas, there's a note on the map. It says the oldest active geocache in the world.
Yeah, that's really cool. It shows up on Google Maps like that.
So, so we wanted to make that known, and also to help let people know what it is there. Because again, I think sometimes curiosity. I've talked to many muggles that don't know what geocaching is. Says, "Oh, I found a geocache at one time. It was in this area." So maybe thinking that Mingo could be one of those caches people don't know that's there.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make a plaque, and we had it scheduled for the very first event for the mega event in 2020 was going to be an unveiling of the plaque. Well, as you and I and probably everyone else listening remembers,
Mm-hmm.
May of 2020 was a very interesting time.
Yes.
Um, but we already had the plaque made, so there was 6 of us, most of us members of the committee for Mingo Madness. We drove out to Western Kansas and stayed in a hotel and ate to go food from everywhere because no restaurants were open. Working with Kansas Department of Transportation, we put a plaque in the ground, concrete with poles that are about 7 foot tall, and hung the plaque from that. So, and it stated more or less the significance of what the cache was.
And that's actually a virtual geocache as well.
Yes. So one of the members that was on the committee for the 2020 Mingo Madness had a virtual reward 2.0.
Okay.
So knowing that we were putting a plaque there, um, we worked it into the design of the monument, something that you have to answer to get a virtual reward or to get the virtual cache. So you had to answer some questions, and once you figure out what it is, then you can get that virtual. So So as most people know, the cache and plaque were stolen last year by
Yes.
somebody. Um, but when they stole the plaque, the information you're looking for the virtual is still there.
So the virtual is still active, even though the plaque has not yet been recovered.
Yes, it has not been recovered or replaced.
Right.
So we
I
can
think
talk about
it's
that one
really
also.
interesting that it's in the historical markers database.
Yes. And we've actually discussed it with people at the state of Kansas because hosting mega events, bringing a lot of people to a state, you get to talk to people in higher places than you would think, to actually make it a historical location. But it does not meet all the qualifications for that yet.
Okay.
So, but we did place the marker there, and word got to historical marker database, and we were able to get it on their website. And if you go to it now, it does still say missing.
Yes.
Um, but there are plans in the works, and by the time this episode is airing, very shortly we should have the plaque reestablished.
That'll be great. I know it caused quite the uproar in the community when not only the container, but the actual plaque went missing.
And knowing about the container, containers cost me $12 to replace.
Yeah.
And I would rather replace a $12 container than somebody completely vandalize and tear down a monument.
Yeah. As you mentioned before we started recording, those plaques are not cheap.
Well, and the original one was a little bit cheaper than the one we're putting up. So the original one, because it was placed by members of the committee, and a shout out to Geocache Talk. Two of their members were actually on our committee during that event. But Geocache Talk actually put quite a bit of money into help have that plaque placed.
Okay.
So
That helped out
it was actually
significantly
made
then.
out of plaster and not solid metal.
Really?
So yes, a lot of people think it was stolen possibly for um, the copper prices, because a lot of those plaques, and it did look like it was made out of copper, but
Yeah.
the joke was on them because it was made out of plaster.
That's interesting because I've seen pictures of the plaque and it does look like it's an actual metal plaque. So that's
Yes. Um, but that's one thing we're looking at doing, because we're actually getting ready to launch a funding campaign to help pay for it, because the replacement is going to be a metal plaque. It won't be copper, because we're not spending that much. But it's going to still be a metal plaque to be able to withstand somebody just pulling it off of the poles.
so like a aluminum or steel alloy.
Yes, there's an alloy out there that will help it withstand people being people. I'm trying to be nice.
I know you are. It's just I know you are, and I appreciate that, but at the same time I laugh because I know I got an idea. I may not know the exact words of what you want to say, but I got an inkling.
Yes. There's been many days and nights that Mingo has been on my heart and mind. And because I don't know how much you paid attention to the whole timing of the plaque being stolen, but it is down within a 15-minute time frame of being stolen.
Wow.
And there, we did have the local law enforcement did assist us, because there is a webcam within about 250 yards of that
Oh,
cache, but
really?
it doesn't face the cache or the plaque.
Mm.
It's one of the I-70 weather cameras is right there.
Okay.
So there were a couple suspicious vehicles getting off the ramp or getting on I-70 that they were wondering if it had some connection to, but they have not been able to get any additional information from the vehicles.
Wow. That's wild.
So it is definitely a well-known location. The local law enforcement know about it. Like I said, the church right there up the road definitely knows about it, and many organizations know that it's there, know of its significance, and support us as any way they can.
Yeah, I can't think of a more well-known, middle of nowhere location like that. That's not like a national park or something. That's just tiny little map dot. That if you
Yes,
ask a
I joke.
geocacher, most of them know what Mingo is.
I joke with because I live in Kansas. I joke with most Kansans that I can name 10 people that know where Mingo, Kansas is. Can you? And most people don't know where Mingo, Kansas is unless they are a geocacher.
That's funny.
Because it is. It's a very small
It is
town
small.
between two bigger towns. And when I say bigger towns, both of those towns have less than 3,000 people in it.
And how
So
far are those away from Mingo?
both of them are right about 7 to 8 miles.
Okay.
So funny part about I-70, as I drive right by your town on I-70, it goes all the way through Kansas as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that section of I-70 does not go east and west. That section, if you look at the map, actually goes north and south.
Yes.
Which
270's famous for doing that too, only that
yep.
happens over in my neck of the woods. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's still I-70, but for some reason, just the way that the land was laid,
Yeah,
it goes
it cuts
between those two
differently.
towns, north and south. So, which was fun when we were writing up the wording for the plaque. Because at first we said east, but it was, or first we said north, but it should have been west. So, or, so it was just fun doing it. Which, like I said, it will be back soon enough.
So why is the plaque not at the actual geocache?
One of the reasons, so like I said, I was kind of a brainchild with it, and the reason we put it there was to try and um, prevent people from being people. And we're hoping because where the plaque is has become a parking area, and we're
Oh,
hoping that people would actually park, find the virtual, and then walk down to the geocache.
okay.
Because you would think most geocachers could walk the, I forget the actual number, but it was under 250 feet to the cache. But even after the plaque was there, you still see people drive their car right up to it or right on the road on the corner and walk down the 10 feet to the cache. So that's why it was placed where it was.
Okay.
And that's also where the local authorities wanted us to put it.
Fair enough. I can see how local authorities may get to have a bit of say of where you're sticking a plaque at.
So, and that's where we ended up putting it. Cause we did talk about putting it over actual by the cache as well. But it was just easier for them to mow around where it's at and different issues like that.
Okay.
Things you would never think about.
Yeah. So Mingo Madness, we've talked about a bit, and it is turned into a mega event to basically celebrate this geocache.
Yes.
And it's set to occur every 5 years, correct?
Yes. So we went off of the standard that was placed in 2015, and now we did the event in 2020 is when we scheduled it. But we actually hosted it in 2021. And the next time is 5 years later, so we're going to do it in 2025.
Okay, so I was wondering about that since it got pushed to 21, if the 5 years would go from 20 or from 21. So
nope, we're going to through discussions, we're going to do it in 2025 because the original was 2015, and they wanted to do it every 5 years. So 2020, even though we did in 2021, there is actually still some swag that was purchased prior to still say Mingo
Oh,
2020.
really?
Yes. So just like Geo Coin Fest that year, I also hosted that one, and there was swag that was ordered that said 2020 on it. We used the other logo.
Hey, that works.
Yep.
Whatever you got to do. I mean, it's
So,
kind of an
but
oddity from that point in time that we were all dealing with. So
yes, but honestly, and I tell a lot of people, the way that it turned out, I think had a great impact on how it's going to move forward. It was a wonderful event using the fairgrounds. It was not supposed to be originally. Originally, we were supposed to be in a smaller uh, civic center. They do have a new civic center since 2021. So we may do some events inside just to prevent weather because May in Kansas can be hot. Um, but we're already talking with the city and officials figure out how we want to do 2025. We have some goals that we want to do because you always want to make things bigger and better than the last
yeah,
time.
of course.
I know we've talked about geo tours and fireworks and all kind of crazy other things that your mind can think of. And if there's something that you want to see, you could still go on to the cache page from Mingo or the geo art that's out there, and I still get all those emails. So it's definitely something we're still working on, but is still in a very, very early stage of planning.
You got a little bit of time, but it'll creep up on us before you
It,
know it.
it jumps up quick. I know when we announced it in 2019, we even said the same thing about 2020. We pushed, so Mingo actually got pushed twice that year. We pushed it from May to September, and then September to back to May. So it definitely was a very interesting time because we actually can't postponed it twice.
Yeah. I know Mingo Madness 2025 is a bit off, but can you tell us anything about what to maybe expect for it?
So again, we're looking at possibly redoing the geo art. So if you haven't gotten the palm tree that's out there, there'll probably be a new geo art by then. We're definitely working with the city to build on the relationships and build on the activities we did in 2021. For those that were there, it is sitting on their county fairgrounds. There were a couple of things that we weren't happy with, and a couple of things we loved and adored. Uh, so we possibly could get more activities going for that weekend. A lot of it's up in the air because it always comes down to. I'm sorry, I'm saying a lot. It it comes down to cost and resources.
Right. Why every 5 years though?
Just because of the size of the town.
Yeah.
And Mingo Madness is one of those events that, unlike like a GeoCoin Fest. So I did GeoCoin Fest in Kansas City. Kansas City is a big town.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff to do. This year it's gonna be in Daytona Beach. A lot of stuff to do. Geo Woodstocks, big towns, a lot of stuff to do. But for anybody who's been out to Mingo, there's not a lot of stuff to do. So it's almost we create the event. Uh, Most of your activities, we are bringing the activity to you. In 2021, we actually had the Travel Bugs come out and sing a concert. So we had to bring out a stage. We had to get porta potties. Who would ever thought you'd have to? So things that you don't really need in smaller or in bigger towns, you had to bring in. So the cost, and we brought in, the last I heard from the chamber, they're saying it was over 2,200 people came through town that weekend for geocaching.
Wow.
But if you remember, the county only has 2,500 people live in the county.
Yeah, so you doubled the county for a
So
weekend.
it's one of those where it's the town is wonderful. They support us. 98% of people loved that we were there, and we filled up all the hotel rooms. And the counties next to us, we filled up a lot of their hotel
I
rooms.
bet.
So it was a great tourist thing, but it's also a lot of work on the committee, and also there are a lot of mega events every year.
True.
So we're hoping that with one less mega event every year, it will save people a couple pennies and they can come out and visit us in 2025. So, and that's one of the stances we've been taking now, is because there's a lot of mega events, and most of the mega events are going longer. I was just down at a mega event that was almost 10 days long.
Wow.
And when you add in hotel expenses, travel, time off of work, it's a lot of time. So I know with like GeoCoin Fest this year, which I'm one of the co-hosts of that one this year, we are shortening it because we know that next weekend there's another big mega event. So we're trying to do it with a 10-day activity, but you're going to go to 2 different mega events.
Okay.
So because we're the weekend before going caching in Georgia.
Okay.
So come down to Daytona, do our festivities. We'll send you off to go pillage up to going caching, because they're the Vikings this year.
Oh, okay.
Is their team. So we're working with them as best we can to make it kind of a vacation, a geocaching vacation. And if you have Mogul family, you can do that week in between down in Orlando or something like that as a family activity, but still get those 2 mega events that are very significant in the community.
Yeah.
One with geocoins and the other one with puzzles.
Yeah, and I mean that's a big thing if you've got muggles in tow for events. Like we got to meet you in person last year at Moga, and I had my son and my mom, but my husband was with us, but he's a muggle, but he comes along and he just follows along. But with the adventure labs and everything else going on, he gets to enjoy a lot of it too.
Yes. And your son with path tags.
Yes. Yes. You got my son addicted to path tags. And then you made him that awesome path tag holder for him and sent to him for his birthday, which is proudly on his wall with a bunch of path tags in it. It's I counted up the other, it's a little over half full. And well, we're planning on, as long as life doesn't get in the way, we have plans to be at Geo Woodstock this year. And
very good.
And
there will be path tags.
Yes,
there.
There'll be path tags. So I have my podcast one, and I just recently ordered a GeoGoat path tag.
And, are you bringing the goat?
Well, so we did book a hotel that is pet friendly, but I have to call and confirm if I kind of I don't want to get there with a goat and then can't stay there with a goat, because it's a bit of a drive, and to have to turn around and not get to stay because we can't find a place with the goat. Yeah, so
yes, I understand completely.
So I have a feeling she may be staying back with the dogs again, but we'll have that path tag, and this year the plan is to let him trade with that path tag to hand out instead of just taking all of mine.
I'm trying to have a new one done up for this year as well, so you may have a new one for his collection with my name on it.
He thinks those are just so awesome, and so many people were happy to trade with him. Even if they had already gotten one from me, they would trade with him again so he could have the path tag, and
that's awesome.
It was pretty awesome.
It's the whole idea and concept of path tags being a cheaper model of a geocoin is a great idea, and it's something that the little ones can get into
Oh
without a big
yeah.
expense by the parents, because we all know the parents are paying for
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah, he's not paying for it.
Exactly.
But he does enjoy it, and my mom is
Yeah.
into him now too after all that. So we got her some. We managed to get she got a couple, and any doubles or triplets we managed to find, we sent to you've got backs of
I'll
them.
have to go through and see if I have any more doubles or triples. And
That's awesome. you you sent him some path tags that you had extra with that side, and Lee Katz also reached out and said I've got some extras I'll send to you for him, and a couple
that's
people
awesome.
reached out and said we will be happy to send him some extra path tags if we find some. So that was
Well, and I know his birthday's coming up again. Who knows? We may get a path tag,
yeah, you know what,
a path tag present for him.
he is constantly asking me about his birthday. Once Christmas ends, he's
Now it's
with how
birthday.
long to my birthday? 7 months. Oh man, that's when you were born, kiddo. Sorry. So about once a week he asked me how much longer till his birthday right now. So he's geared
That's
up
funny.
for it. Wants to know why I haven't started buying the party supplies and stuff for his birthday, because you might change your mind on the theme in the next 4 months, you know. Well,
Yes. Kids forget how much they change your mind on
they
things.
do. It's amazing how that happens. And that's the show sidetrack right there.
I would never sidetrack a show.
You know what? I sidetrack it pretty easily on my own half the time. So
But it makes it realistic.
it is,
Because when
yeah.
have you ever gone to a geocaching event and everything was about one topic?
Yeah. So getting back to Mingo.
Yes. What else do we need to talk about, Mingo?
This research you've gathered, you're doing something with.
Yes, I have been in the process of doing it. So I was hoping to have it by 2021, but means life gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I have probably 4 or 5 different folders on my computers that show about Mingo and the history of it and some of the great stories of it. I remember reading one of the stories about a gentleman who had a Greyhound bus stop at exit 62 so he could find the geocache.
Really?
Because I believe I don't remember it completely. I have it written down. I've met the gentleman since. He lives up in Pacific Northwest. But he was traveling on the Greyhound bus from Kansas City out to Colorado, and the whole trip he was talking about this geocache, this amazing thing that's been around for years and years and years. Um, so finally, he was looking out the window, getting ready to wave by. Because if you haven't been out there, it's right off the interstate. Getting ready to wave by it, but the bus takes a detour to the right and gets off on the exit. And they pull into the gas station across the street, and a couple other people walk out to the geocache with them. And they look at him and go, "That's it." And nobody talked to him for the rest of the trip.
Wow.
But it's stories like that, and just the history of the geocache. Some of the stuff we talked about, some of the stuff I didn't go as in detail with. Some of the things I've learned from Kansas Stasher, the original cache owner, or the cache owner. And just I love history, so I want to get the history out for everyone else. So I am actually working on a book that will tell you all the cache, the close nearby finds, actual finds, some of the stories of people wanting to make it a milestone, but finding out it was disabled because somebody filled it in with concrete.
Oh.
And what comes after that? Because I actually had a friend who wanted to find it for, I think it was her 200th find. Well, we get an email notification saying that it is disabled.
Oh,
So
wow.
I ended up having to make a challenge or a cache for her with 200 little boxes, and the cache was in one of them.
Oh.
Just for her 200th find. So luckily it wasn't like 1,000. But it's little stories, just a part of the geocaching history that we all know and love, and to keep it alive, to keep its memory alive, because everybody has a Mingo story if they've been out there. I've talked to people who've taken an 8-hour detour. I've talked to people who've flown into Denver, Colorado, got a rental car, drove to Mingo, and made it just back in time for their conference that they were actually in Denver for.
Now that's not a short drive, Denver to Mingo, Kansas.
It is not. And what a lot of people forget is there's a time change.
Oh, that's
So
right.
There are 3 counties in western Kansas that are actually on mountain time.
That's right.
And Mingo is not one of them. so a lot of people will drive over, forget that there's a time change. I've been to an event that the host of the event was late because they forgot there's an hour time difference.
Wow.
So
yeah,
there's a lot of stories out there. I just want to put them down on paper and let people see their name in a book.
Yeah.
That's always fun to see, your name in history, and just be able to share the message.
That'll be pretty neat. And I know life is always there first, getting in the way of projects, but when we spoke before this, you were saying you're hoping to have it ready for 2025 Mingo Madness.
That is the plan. Hopefully, probably, who knows, probably by the end of this year, maybe early next year, I'll send you a rough draft so you can fix all my misspellings.
Oh, if you want me to fix spellings, you're sending it to the wrong person.
Yeah, I'm with you. But that's one thing that I do. I don't want to put something out that's not professional.
Right.
So and that's one of the things is I know what I want to say, it's how to say it, kind of things. I do have a beautiful bride who will keep me on track on things. So I know she's already been voluntold to read it. And I got other friends who are gonna read it for me and try and keep me straight.
I mean, I'd love to read it, but I can't promise you I'm going to be able to help you correct anything.
So, well, hopefully, between now and me finishing it, you can pack up the geogoat and the little guy and the muggle husband and come on out to Kansas, and I'll meet you out there. And we'll go find it, and we can add that story to the book.
Okay, the day the goat found Mingo.
There you go. There's a lot of fun stories. So I don't think I've heard a goat one yet.
That's the one thing with a goat is it kind of neat. See, you almost have to have a camper or something if you want to travel with her, because goats in hotels are oddly enough don't seem to be welcomed. Whoever thought that would be an issue? Like,
it's just a dog.
Yeah, I like to call her my mixed breed dog or my exotic dog.
There you go. Yes,
exotic breed dog.
That's funny.
She's been raised with dogs, so she kind of thinks she is one, other than she headbutts. But
that's fun though. They keep the dogs in order.
Her and my little dog have like this love-hate relationship. They are like the best of friends when they're outside and they don't know we're watching. Like I can watch them out the window and they are playing and they are loving on each other. She'll just go rub on her and they'll just lay next to each other. They come inside and it is the battle of wills for attention.
Of course.
And it's that sibling rivalry. And I start petting the dog and the goat comes up and rams the poor dog, or I'll be petting the goat and the dog will come over and nip at her and chase her off. And it's like, I have 2 hands. I can pet both of you, until the other dog comes up. And then it's like 3 animals, 2 hands. It becomes a challenge. But
Now, now you know what your son can do as a chore to get him more path tags. Just pet that dog that's out.
Yeah, go pet the other dog. Oh, there we go.
there's there's our off-topic part 2.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, gosh, I hear myself talk sometimes. I go, oh, well, people actually listen to this.
Well, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and only the true ones listen to the end. So.
Yeah. I know we've talked about a geocache the entire time, but did you have a cache highlight you wanted to share?
Oh, I could probably tell you my first story of Mingo.
Okay, that'd be great.
So, like I said, when I first geocache, I was in Missouri for about 2 weeks, and then I spent a little over 2 years geocaching in Europe. So I was getting ready to hit number 2,000, and it's funny how fast a number pops up on you. And looking through the different dates, I'm like, oh, I go out there this weekend. But then I looked at my number, and I was within 10 geocaches of finding my 2,000 geocache. So I took a round trip tour out to Mingo, Kansas, and I was the same way. I had a friend with me, and so Mingo is exit 62 on I-70. So we find Mingo in the middle, late evening. We're sitting there like, well, Colorado is only 60 miles away. That's 1 hour. Well, just coming back from Europe, we're getting ready to start driving. I'm like, I can't go to Colorado. I don't have my passport. So that was A, how tired I was, and B, living overseas and needing passports to go to different countries.
Yeah.
And different borders. So that was my embarrassing story of when I found Mingo. And realizing that you don't need passports to go to state borders.
Thank goodness you don't need passports to cross state borders.
I know, because I drive by your area so much that my passport would be full.
Yeah.
I do travel quite often. This month I've been Alabama, Florida, Texas, and I'll be going to Michigan next month.
Wow.
So
they're keeping you busy.
I'll be up in Moga, helping them up there again this year, and I'll be helping out Woodstock this year also. So I'm gonna send a message and try and get you an answer on your goat. So I'll just need to find out from you offline what hotel you're staying at. See if policy.
Yeah, because it did say pet friendly, but I'm like, it probably meant like cats, maybe dogs.
Actually, a lot of hotels, I've come to find out, a lot of hotels don't like cats.
You know, my mom actually ran into that a little over a year ago. She sold her house and was getting ready to move into an apartment, but she had like a week in between, and she's got 2 cats. And the first hotel she booked said pet friendly, but then when she called for whatever reason was confirming it, they're like, oh no, we don't take cats, only dogs. And she's like, well, it doesn't say that on the booking site. So she had to find a new hotel.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times. It's dogs only.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the horns, I could pass her off as a dog.
Put her in a helmet.
You know, when we first got her, when it was just little nubs, I could put a dog hat on her. And I'd always get like this double look, like people weren't quite sure what that was when we'd walk her. Now the hat doesn't cover the little horn. They're not nubs anymore.
Remember, I'm in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, and we have an agricultural college here.
Yeah.
And I've met a few people that have sheep and goats as pets as well. So it's definitely different to see a sheep walking down a trail.
Yeah, it's very interesting. If we're walking the goat, if we have the goat with us, you just got to plan to take longer for 2 reasons. One, because you got to stop to let her graze. And 2, because everybody that sees you is going to go, oh my gosh, is that a goat? Can I pet her? Can I take a picture? You really have a goat? And they're going to want to pet the goat, which is perfectly fine with us. So if you're in a hurry, don't take the goat. But
Yeah,
I've actually come across somebody that was walking a chicken here in St. Charles.
I have seen that. Yep.
Here in a park in St. Charles.
But did the chicken you find have the fake arms on it?
No, it didn't. It just had a little harness and leash on it. It didn't have the fake arms.
Yeah, we have a friend who I know somebody who had a chicken with the arms. I had another friend wanting to make those arms for her chicken.
Those videos are hilarious.
They are. So I think that's your next episode. Crazy animal geocaching pets.
It's interesting because I posted, probably back in the first season, I think, trying to get, tips for geocaching with pets. And people will post images of, a lot of dogs, but I saw cats.
Yep. We have a local cat.
A rabbit, bearded dragons, a rat. There are some people that have some interesting animals to cache with.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to Annie Love, one of the lackeys, and she's like, "Oh, I remember at Geo Coin Fest in Nebraska, there was a geocaching hedgehog."
That's awesome.
And I had to remind her that was actually our hedgehog.
Oh.
So. Well, we went to Nebraska, and you can't just leave a hedgehog sitting at the house with no support. So we took it with us.
And yet that's still a pet you can go find at a pet store, though, where a goat is a little different.
True.
A little different buy. But we have actually taken her to the Petco up here when Santa has been there for the pet pictures, and she's had her picture with Santa, and it was funny because we walked in with the goat and they said, "You just missed the chicken by like an hour."
Things you hear every day.
Yeah, I know, right? And on that derailment.
Well, if you ever need another show derailed, just ask me back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for getting on here and talking Mingo with me today.
No problem. Anytime. I listen to the show all the time.
Thank you for that.
Be happy to chime in anytime you need some help.
Thank you for that. You've been listening to Geocache Adventures with me, Shadow Dragon 1. If you'd like to get in touch, you can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or go to geocacheadventures.org and you can find the information on the contact page. Theme music is by The Travel Bugs. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have you heard of FTF Magazine? It's the magazine for geocachers. It is full of articles and pictures all submitted by geocachers just like you. I'm a subscriber myself, and I love it. My favorite part is the little snippets on the edges of the articles on all the different pages. Those are my favorites. Just go to ftfgeo.com to check them out and tell them Shadow Dragon 1 sent you.